Hello, this is Cynthia Douthit with the Jewish Christian Studies Center. And as you know, due to the coronavirus, we've had to cancel our November 2020 tour for the women going to Israel. But we have a special tour available for 10 to 12 women. So if you're one of those ladies that you've had on your bucket list, you want to go to Israel, you want to see the places that Yeshua Jesus walked, you want to visit with the people, you want to get a behind the scenes look of area A, B, and C, and there's two different types of area A, B, and C, and I hope you can go with me to see these different sites and places that's more than what the tourists go to. That there's area A, which people go there a lot of times. There is no historical, no archaeological, or no biblical reference for that place actually being the real place that that event took place. We don't go to those places. We go to what is termed in guide language, areas B and C, but we really like to go to area C because area C is biblically correct, historically and archaeologically correct. So this is a different tour than maybe you've been on to Israel before, but I'm looking for 10 to 12 women because I can get the rooms and the airfare for a small group. You know, normally a tour takes a year and a half to 2 years to get on the books. This tour that I had for 2020, I actually got on the books at the end of 2018. And I booked it 3 weeks after we came back from a 2018 tour. And the hotels and the kibbutz that I wanted were already booked up. And this was 2 years out. So you can see how things need to be booked out. But I can get enough rooms and airline tickets for 10 to 12 women. So if you're one of those ladies who you want to go to Israel, you want to have an inspirational study time, and you want to look at the Bible through the eyes of Yeshua Jesus, historically, culturally, in its context, and through the culture, this is the tour for you. Haven't set the dates yet, but it is spring of 2021. And so if you're interested, please private message me, email me, let me know if you're interested in going. But I wanted to just go over a few things that we're going to be looking at. One of the things when we get there, we'll get to our hotel. We should be able to walk along the Mediterranean Sea before our supper. We'll go in for our supper, and then we'll get a relaxing sleep that night and up the next morning. But one of the things that we're going to do, and this isn't all the things we're going to do, we've got some surprises along the way, and I don't want to let everything be told. But we're going to travel through the Jezreel Valley, and we're going to recall the life and death of Jezebel as we make our way to Megiddo and the Armageddon battlefield, where archaeologists have uncovered 20 layers of civilization. And after that, we're going to take in the view of Mount Tabor. And this is where we're going to remember the victory and the story of Deborah, a prophet, a judge in Israel, along with Yael. Then we're going to go to Sepphoris, which is a marvelous place. There's a lot of history there. And we're going to see the Mona Lisa of the Galilee. And also, it's possible that Yeshua worked in Sepphoris because it's just right across the valley, the hillside from Nazareth. After that, we're going to go visit the hometown of Mary Magdalene. And this is just an absolutely wonderful place. This is one of those area C's. It's historical, it's biblical, and it's archaeologically correct. So we know that this is a place that Mary Magdalene was from. This is a place that Yeshua Jesus and the disciples would have been. And we're going to see a well-preserved village there, as well as a first-century synagogue. This would have been a synagogue that Yeshua Jesus would have been familiar with. Then we're going to have another day, we're going to have a short stop at the possible site of the multiplication of loaves and fishes in Bethsaida before continuing to Chorazim and Capernaum. And these three sites form what is called the Evangelical Triangle, because this is where Yeshua Jesus did most of his miracles, where he was teaching, where he was at, when he was ministering in the Galilee area. And then we're going to go through the Golan Heights. We're going to stop at a kibbutz. We're going to tour there. And then we're going to have an opportunity to visit with some current IDF soldiers, and some of those are women soldiers. So we'll see what it's like for them. And then we're going to have a relaxing cruise on the Sea of Galilee. We're going to have a brief scripture reading, a devotional on board, and we're going to look at the life of Yeshua Jesus and the fishermen, as well as the women of the Galilee that supported and traveled with Yeshua. We're going to travel toward Mount Gilboa, And we're going to learn a little more about the account of the woman of Endor and Saul. As we go into Samaria, we're going to look at the life of Dinah, the daughter of Jacob, as well as Jacob's well. And we're going to look at that story where Yeshua Jesus is having a theological discussion with the Samaritan woman. We're going to look at some interesting things about her life that maybe hasn't really been brought out before in some of the studies that you've done, but we're going to look at her life. And after that, we're going to visit a place that was where Abraham's altar is said to have been. We're going to go to the Old Testament city of Shiloh, very rich in history. And while we're there, we're going to examine the story of Hannah as she prayed for a son. But we're also going to look at the story of the women who served at the door of the tent of meeting. Yes, women were involved in priesthood work. And so we're going to look at that in the scripture and see where they would have been serving. As we go to Jericho, ancient Jericho, we're going to look at the story of Rahab, a Gentile woman who was spared from destruction, her and her family. And then she is in the genealogy of Yeshua Jesus. And then we're going to go east of Jericho to Qasr El Yahud, and that's on the side of Bethany beyond the Jordan. And we're going to stop there for those that would like to have a mikveh. We'll have a teaching about the mikveh, the Jewish term of the living water. And this is a place where John the Baptist would have watched Yeshua be immersed in the water. And we're going to have that story in the scripture and explain exactly what was going on in the culture and the context and the time in which this was written and lived. We're going to look at the area where Elijah and Elisha crossed the Jordan, as well as look at the place and be at the place where Joshua and the children of Israel, those that were brought out of Egypt, which was a mixed multitude, Jews and non-Jews, yes, there were Gentiles that were brought out of Egypt, and where they crossed over and entered into the promised land, and see where they first settled after entering the promised land. And this is also where they observed their very first Passover in the promised land. Then we'll head up to Jerusalem. We'll have 5 nights there. And we're going to walk where Yeshua Jesus walked. We're going to go up those southern steps. We're going to see the Hulda Gate. We're going to go to many of the places that Yeshua himself would have been very familiar with. As we do that, we're going to go to the southern steps. We're going to see the excavations, again, the Hulda Gates, and hear about her story, a woman prophet, and how the king listened to her. And we're going to see where the court of the women were. If the conditions are permitting, we are going to go up on the Temple Mount. And when we are up there, we will recall the wonderful story of Hannah, of Anna, as she saw baby Yeshua. And we're going to look at what she went about telling the people after she had seen him. And we're going to look at that in the culture, in the context of the time it was taking place, because it was maybe different than the way you are envisioning it. And then we're also going to look at what Yeshua Jesus would have written in the dust when the woman taken in adultery was brought before him. And I think this might be a little interesting insight for you too, because it possibly links back to the Old Testament. We're going to go to the U.S. Embassy, and we'll get our pictures made there. And we're going to depart from Jerusalem. We're going to travel through the Sorek Valley, and we're going to recall the story of Samson's first girlfriend and also Samson's last girlfriend, Delilah. We'll travel to En-Kerem, an ancient village, and according to Christian tradition, this is where John the Baptist was born. And while we're there, we're going to look at the story of Salome and how she called for the head of John the Baptist and that story behind that, as well as looking at Elizabeth, this older woman, preparing for the birth of her son, and then how Mary, her relative, a young girl, came as she was also preparing to give birth to the Messiah. We're going to go to the Mount of Olives. We're going to go to the Garden of Gethsemane. We will go to the Western Wall, the Kotel, on Friday night and pray with the other people. We will be on the women's side of the wall, and then we'll go back for a Shabbat meal. We will go to the Garden Tomb. We'll have communion at the Garden Tomb. And then we've got some special things lined up for the, like the Temple Mount dirt sifting project, although I think the dirt now isn't from the Temple Mount, but it's from other excavation areas that they're bringing in. And you might can find an ancient Israeli artifact. Many in our group have done that on the tours that we've done before. And we're also going to go to the ancient fortress, top of Masada. We're going to take a cable card ride up there, and we're going to hear about the history of the famous Zealot stand and the story of the 2 surviving women and what takes place there. Afterwards, we're going to go to the Dead Sea. For those who can't swim, this is your opportunity to float, because the Dead Sea is about 10 times saltier than the ocean. And then we will go also to Yad Vashem, the Holocaust Memorial and the Children's Memorial. We'll have classes before we go, so you'll be prepared for these different places. You'll be prepared as we go to the airport, what we will encounter as we go to the airport. As we get to Israel, we go through the passport area, and then luggage claim, and then meeting our guide and getting on the bus. So we'll have classes. We will do them in person, as well as you'll have them accessible by recording like this if you don't live in the area. We're also going to go to the city of David, and you'll find that very interesting. It is underground. We will go down there. They've excavated quite a bit down there. Every time I go, they've excavated more and more. And of course, we will retell the story and remember about Bathsheba and David and what she was doing when she was taking that bath on the rooftop. We're going to visit Gehan Springs, the original water source for Jerusalem. And we're going to go to a hillside, and we're really going to overlook Jerusalem and the Gehenna Valley. We will hear stories from the scripture about the Gehenna Valley and just really what is going to take place there and has taken place there. And we're also going to continue on to Beersheba and see Abraham's well and hear the story of Sarah and Abraham. We've got a lot of interesting things lined up for you. Again, this is going to be a special tour for women. And it is going to be in the spring of 2021. So it's a few months off, and you have time to contact me, private message me, email me to get your name on the list. This is a special inspirational tour, a study tour for just 10 to 12 women. So we'll be able to kind of go off some of the off the beaten path. With a smaller group, you can make some spur of the moment changes and stops, and we can get into places where larger groups can't go. So I invite you to go with me on this special women's tour, spring 2021. Let me know if you're interested so I can get your name on the list. And I hope you'll consider going with me and the Jewish Christian Studies Center on this special tour for women only, spring 2021. Shalom, shalom.